I can be really clear with you that there was no UK involvement in this operation, and obviously we're working in relation to British citizens.
I've got 2 daughters, Patrick, and I've never been so scared of the future of Britain. You know, I'm actively trying to see how maybe I can get out. I'm petrified for the future of my kids, especially my 2 girls. I'm pretty confident that if I left this studio now and went and randomly attacked 3 women, abused them, called them prostitutes and other names, that I would be arrested and I would expect to go to prison. Now, the fact that that hasn't happened is worrying to me. Again, I think we're seeing 2-tier policing, 2-tier justice, and we've got a 2-tier Prime Minister in this country and a 2-tier media. The way things are treated.
The British Parliament has just exploded into absolute chaos. Westminster has descended into a state of absolute radioactive chaos as Sir Keir Starmer faces a career-defining revolt over what critics are branding the ultimate Brexit betrayal. Just 18 months after his landslide victory, the Prime Minister's open flirtation with EU single market alignment has ignited a wildfire of fury, sending his approval ratings into the sub-basement, while Reform UK rockets to the top of the polls, with Priti Patel leading the charge against this systematic dismantling of British sovereignty, and even senior Labour backbenchers panicking behind closed doors. The forensic leader now finds himself in a desperate fight for survival against a public and a party that feels utterly sold out to Brussels. Make no mistake, these are not the minor grumblings of some lonely backbencher shouting into the void for a scrap of relevance. This is the Conservative Party's heavy artillery foreign affairs voice declaring absolute unmitigated war on Sir Keir Starmer's entire European strategy. The signal being sent is crystal clear. The Tories are convinced the Prime Minister is attempting to lobotomise the democratic will of the British people through sneaky paper-shuffling backdoor shenanigans. But here is the bit that will really make your tea turn cold. The call is coming from inside the House. The rebellion is currently erupting from within the Labour Party itself, with 13 members of Parliament already voting for proposals that pave a golden highway back into the European Union customs union. It is a move that does not just ignore their manifesto promises, it sets them on fire and dances on the ashes. Senior Labour figures are now sounding the alarm, warning that this internal mutiny risks igniting a full-blown civil war. In the corridors of power, MPs are quietly confessing to journalists that backing closer European ties is nothing short of electoral suicide, especially in those vital red wall seats where Nigel Farage's Reform UK is currently snapping at their heels like a pack of hungry wolves. These are the very seats Labour must cling to if they have any prayer of surviving the next general election. And the fine print is even worse. Starmer has reportedly handed European fishing boats access to British waters until the year 2030. This was supposed to be a temporary arrangement ending in 2026, but instead, the government has essentially handed over the keys to our coastline for the next 12 years.
Remainer, always a Remainer. Keir Starmer is planning to sell Britain out to the EU.
We get Alistair Heath's horrified take on the government's plan for closer alignment with Brussels despite Brexit.
We have regulated ourselves to death. We have taxed ourselves to death. We've chased away millionaires and billionaires in their hundreds, if not tens of thousands when it comes to millionaires. We've just told people, don't come here if you want to make money. We don't like rich people. We will tax you. You know, Labour's introducing a mansion tax. You know, we've done all this kind of stuff. It is completely nuts, right? We should be a country that attracts capital and rewards hard work and innovation. That's how you get economic growth. Not by rejoining the EU. It's an absurdity, it's a lie, it's delusion, you know, it's cowardice.
Yeah.
And it smacks of a complete lack of imagination.
The surrender of maritime and regulatory control. Critics contend that the government has orchestrated a profound retreat from the central promise of Brexit, the reclamation of national sovereignty. Nowhere is this more evident than in the fishing industry, where the administration has granted EU vessels continued access to British waters for over a decade. This move has been characterised by industry leaders as a total betrayal that sacrifices coastal livelihoods for political expediency. Beyond the coastline, a new regulatory framework concerning food and agricultural standards, known as the Sanitary and Phytosanitary Agreement, effectively binds the UK to Brussels' rulebook. By handing the European Court of Justice final jurisdiction over these matters, the government has ensured that British courts no longer have the ultimate say in what citizens consume or how farmers operate, essentially restoring the Brussels bureaucracy that the 2016 vote was intended to dismantle. Internal mutiny and the projection of electoral collapse. The political fallout from these decisions has reached a tipping point, manifesting as a historic civil war within the governing party. Over 130 Labour MPs have signalled their discontent, with many participating in open revolts against flagship legislation. This internal instability is mirrored by devastating shifts in public opinion. Recent polling suggests a total realignment of the British political landscape. While Reform UK is currently projected to secure a massive majority of over 380 seats, the Labour Party faces a potential collapse to a mere 85 members of Parliament. This erosion of support is driven by a perception that the Prime Minister is systematically reversing promises regarding laws, money and borders, most notably through backdoor schemes like the Youth Mobility Arrangement, which critics claim could grant 64 million EU residents the right to live and work in the UK.
Like all, I think you'd find that the original Eurosceptics included many dual citizens and people of an international background, because, you know, the EU project is anti-internationalist. It's a progressive, collectivist harmonization project which wants to stamp out all national differences and centralize power. And Europe's strength at its best was its decentralized nature, the fact that you had so many different cultures effectively competing against each other. But I digress. The main issue is simple. Labour has collapsed in the polls. We're starting 2026 with Labour on 17%, according to YouGov.
Behind the Conservatives for the first time since the
Tories on
last
19%
election.
and Reform on 26%. So it's a catastrophe for the Labour Party, right? It's facing annihilation. You've got the May local elections coming up. They're going to be nuked, basically.
What's left of them?
Yes, and you've got two pro-Brexit parties, in fact, probably radically pro-Brexit parties now, in Reform and Kemi Badenoch's Conservative Party ahead in the polls. So Keir Starmer, who is desperate, is looking for some sort of USP, some sort of mechanism by which he can effectively create an recreate the old anti-Brexit coalition. And so he clearly thinks that rejoining the EU, either de facto or going the whole way, is an answer to grab votes back from the Lib Dems, from the Greens, from the SNP, from all the other assorted left-wingers. Guess what? It won't work. First of all, people don't really care that much about the issue at the moment, right? Secondly, they're fatally, and this is the more important bit, they're fatally misreading the polls. There are lots of opinion polls that show that people regret Brexit, so-called. But in reality, what people regret is everything that's happened since 2016. The general incompetence and total cross-party failure of the British establishment on just about every issue, from immigration to energy to living standards to GDP and so on. If you ask people a different question, which is, who do you want to govern Britain? Do you want power to be exercised in the UK by people who actually do what you say, or do you want power to be exercised abroad? Overwhelmingly, they choose self-government. So if there were a new campaign to rejoin the EU and a proper campaign to stay out of the EU, I'm telling you, the campaign to stay out will win, especially when you read the fine print of what rejoining would mean.
Yes.
But nonetheless, this is not going to stop Starmer, and he's going to push on with trying to effectively betray the electorate and prove once again that what he said in his manifesto has zero value.
Constitutional crisis and the allegations of systemic sabotage. At its core, this crisis has evolved into a fundamental question of democratic legitimacy and constitutional integrity. The government is accused of bypassing parliamentary scrutiny to negotiate secret deals, a precedent that experts warn undermines the unwritten conventions of British democracy. Adding to this volatility are chilling allegations from former insiders like Dominic Cummings, who suggest that a permanent establishment class is prepared to use extra-legal tactics, including the leaking of private records and surveillance, to sabotage political rivals and preserve their grip on power. As the May 2026 local elections approach, the nation is being warned that this is no longer a simple policy dispute, but a battle for the principle that the government must derive its power from the consent of the governed rather than bureaucratic manipulation.